factors, who is Derek Chauvin? Derek Chauvin spent 19 years as a Minneapolis police officer. He loved being a police officer. I was contacted during the course of my representation and have had numerous conversations with his fellow police officers or fellow police officers that worked with Derek, some retired, some still active. And they told me that he was a solid police officer, that he did his job, that if somebody asked him to do a particular task, he never complained, he did it. One person told me that one of his sergeants told me that if I had asked him to dig a ditch for 8 hours, he would have picked up a shovel and he would have never complained for a second. He would have done his job. He was decorated as a police officer. Multiple life-saving awards. He was decorated for valor. He was proud to be a police officer because what he liked to do was help people. And as the statistics show, the vast majority of police work is helping people. He was proud to be a Minneapolis police officer. He served his country as the United States in the United States Army. And he too is a son, and a brother, and a father, and a friend. He too, his life, the life he's lived, he's not coming into this as a career criminal with 6 points, 5 points, 4 points. He's coming into this never having violated the law because he lived an honorable life and he attempted to live an honorable life. Derek Chauvin was not even scheduled to work on May 25th, 2020. He volunteered because there was short staffing at the time. I know from numerous conversations that I've had with Derek that his brain is littered with what ifs. What if I just had not agreed to go in that day? What if things had gone differently? What if I never responded to that call? What if, what if, what if? The truth of the matter is, and the end result is that we are here after a jury verdict, finding him guilty of these offenses, and the court's consideration should not only be focused on the aggravating factors, but the mitigating factors as well. The Minnesota Sentencing Guidelines Commission was established for a reason. And yes, the court in circumstances like these has discretion to go beyond and aggravate a sentence beyond the presumptive sentences established by the sentencing guidelines. But the sentencing guidelines don't differentiate between second-degree murders. Someone robs a liquor store, a police officer is involved in an incident, and a person dies in police custody. The law presumes, the legislature presumes, that the sentencing guidelines as established is a sufficient penalty for all of the second-degree murder categories or cases you would see. From 2019 back to 2010, a total of 90 people were sentenced for second-degree murder. Those sentences, those people, there were more than that, but people who had a 0 criminal history score, more than 90 people were sentenced. 67%, or 60 of those 90 people, received a guideline sentence of 150 months. So 2/3 of all people in this same position received a guideline sentence. 20% received an aggravated sentence, 18 of the 90, and 13% or 12 individuals were granted mitigated departures. So if the legislature and the intent of the sentencing guidelines is to eliminate sentencing disparity, the law should presume that the guideline sentence is what is appropriate in this case. Judge may take You may take into consideration at this point those aggravating factors, but you have to counterbalance them, which is the goal of the law, with the mitigating factors. I know that this has been an incredibly difficult case for the Floyd family to have to endure. The state of Minnesota, likewise, the prosecutors in this case have endured quite a bit, as has Mr. Chauvin's family. This is a case that has changed the world to some degree, and I hope it's positive. But it's my hope that the court follows the sentencing guidelines, applies the law in a reasoned manner, and imposes a just sentence.
Actually, Mr. Chauvin, would you join Mr. Nelson at the lectern? Mr. Chauvin, this is your opportunity if you wish to give any input to the court. And so I turn it over to you and your attorney.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, due to some additional legal matters at hand, I'm not able to give a full formal statement at this time. But very briefly, though, I do want to give my condolences to the Floyd family. There's going to be some other information in the future that would be of interest, and I hope things will give you some peace of mind. Thank you.
And I'll note that I did read your comments in the pre-sentence investigation as well.
Thanks, Ron.
All right, we are going to take a 15-minute recess so that I can complete the sentencing order based on what I've heard today. And let's reconvene at 2:45. We're in recess.
Okay, so I tuned in a little bit late, but basically it's pretty much exactly what I expected, what we've heard in the few cases that go this route where there's actually a conviction. You notice how hard his attorney had to try and paint him as a model police officer, and yet nobody seems to acknowledge the contradiction that someone can be a model public servant and murder somebody, murder an unarmed person in cold blood. And it's not, and the worst part about this case, a case as gruesome as this one, is that it wasn't just a gunshot and it was all over. You know, there could be some, not many, but some arguments made about a split-second decision when someone's firing a gun. But this fool kneeled on a guy's neck for 8 minutes and 45 seconds. And they're going to give us all this crap about how he is a model police officer and how he's supposed to be, we're supposed to take that into consideration for his sentencing. Yeah, you know, it's trash. It's utter trash. But I figured I didn't really care about streaming the case, and I was really busy at the time. But I figured, I don't necessarily care that much about the conviction because I'm already of the belief that how hard all of the urban police departments have pushed back after his conviction. I know that most of them are going to double down even after his sentencing, even if he gets a harsh sentence. But I did want to watch it because, as I suspected, we would get to see firsthand some of the arguments that people make to defend killer fucking cops. And you know, we'll put some truth on it here. The majority of cops go their whole career and retire from a police department without ever discharging their weapon in the line of duty. It's not something that's as common as you think. But when they do discharge their weapons, they're shooting and killing, you know, the people who they're supposed to be serving. But most cops do not use their weapons outside of the range. And I don't know if they're just itching to have the chance to take on the bad guy or what, but we're seeing now that it literally takes black bodies being brutalized in the streets and on the sidewalks, and it has to be recorded and plastered across evening news before something will be done about it. Yeah, there's been 11 convictions in 15 years. 11 convictions in 15 years. And I remind you, in 2020, police killed over 1,000 people in America. That was just, matter of fact, in the time when a lot of the uprisings happened in the summer last year, I want to say a lot of things really started popping off in April last year, maybe a little bit sooner, but I really started covering it in April is when things really started getting heavy. So April of last year, late April into May, things started getting really crazy, right? And just from April all the way through till November, when it could be said some cities started calming down a little bit, there were hundreds of people who were killed by police just in that time period. Hey, thanks for the host, DJ B North. Appreciate you. So, yep. Yeah, I'm just here. I don't cover a lot of this new stuff, T. Morris Wren, but I figured I saw it was going on here, and I was just sitting here working on a script, and I'm like, you know what, let me turn the camera on. I kind of want to see this. So. Basically, they're taking a recess right now. I believe all of the statements have been heard. So anyone who's joining us, I just want to remind you that this is a sentencing hearing, right? So he's already been convicted. They're hearing statements. Generally, sentencing hearing, you're going to hear statements from the lawyer. You may hear statements from the jury. Then the judge has to go and think about what sentence they're going to issue. Generally speaking, they have sentencing guidelines. And what happens is most states or municipalities or what have you have a series of guidelines that judges most of the time will fall within. They cut
every other case involving second-degree unintentional murder.
So,
as we talked about earlier,
they cut the feed back to the anchor. Anyway, so what you see happening right now is it's the fucker hanging. They're on a recess right now. I'm going to go to the Reuters feed because I don't want to lose the live feed here. Anyway, so what happens is judges have a series of guidelines, sentencing guidelines. They have a series of sentencing guidelines that they normally are expected to fall within. Now, the prosecutor can ask a judge to push a harder sentence, a more harsh sentence than guidelines. The prosecutor can ask the judge to push to deliver a more lenient sentence. The defense is requesting that the judge deliver a more lenient sentence, or failing that, fall within the guidelines. Right now, the prosecutor is asking for a 30-year sentence. We know that the prosecutor is asking for a 30-year sentence, and we know that Derek Chauvin's legal counsel is asking for time served. So to be released on time served. Both him and Chauvin tried to play up how politicized the case was. I don't know that the lawyers, I don't know that his lawyer's statements were all that compelling, just from a legal standpoint. That being said, let me turn this down. I am spiking. All right. So that being said, they had his mother, Carolyn Polenti. That was just the end part before I started the stream up. But they had his mother. They had his mother come in to the stand and deliver a statement as well. And I don't know. That's pretty shitty. But you know, she's up there. Oh, my son is a kind son, and he'll always be a kind son. And she said, if you sentence him, you're sentencing me. It feels very coached. It was very coached. She was probably coached by his legal counsel. So right now, they've panned the camera in the courtroom to the seal of the state of Minnesota. D&B, Chauvin is the reason the 3rd precinct burned down. Even cops hate him. And we all know they won't defund the police, so he's a sacrifice to make things look okay. Yeah, I definitely saw Mushroom. Yeah, Chauvin's mom was called out. What I'll try to do is find a clip of that so I don't have to leave the live stream here. Yeah, they had Chauvin's mom. Trying to see if somebody has already cut a video clip of his mom's statement. I'll try to play some of this before they bring it back to the live feed.
Dash guard is different. It automatically adjusts. So you
Mother of Derek Chauvin. I am here to speak on behalf of my entire family. On November 25th, 2020, not only did Derek's life change forever, but so did mine and my family's. Derek devoted 19 years of his life to the Minneapolis Police Department. It has been difficult for me to hear and read what the media, public, and prosecution team believe Derek to be an aggressive, heartless, and uncaring person. I can tell you that is far from the truth. My son's identity has also been reduced to that as of.
So I am going to touch on a point she just made that goes along with what DB said. D&B said, yeah, the fucking police precinct ditched him too. Like, you had superior officers come in and throw him under the bus as well. So I don't know how his lawyer has a leg to stand on in front of the jury and in front of the courtroom and in front of America to suggest that he's a model police officer and talk about how decorated he is when they literally condemned his actions. And this is other cops condemned his actions. And his mom just mentioned how she felt that the police weren't supporting him either. And, yeah, so boo-hoo. Here's to hoping that your son rots in prison.
That as a racist. I want this court to know that none of these things are true and that my son is a good man. Derek always dedicated his life and time to the police department. Even on his days off, he would call in to see if they needed help. Derek is a quiet, thoughtful.
Only in a capitalist society would we glorify people would we consider it an example of moral fiber and character, somebody coming in on their days off? Seriously, what kind of scab shit is that? That is your brain on capitalism right there, folks.
Mother of November 25th, 2020, but so did mine and my family's apartment. It has been difficult for me to hear and read what the media, public, and prosecution team believe Derek to be an aggressive, heartless, and uncaring person. I can tell you that is far from the truth. My son's identity has also been reduced to that as a racist. I want this court to know that none of these things are true and that my son is a good man. Derek always dedicated his life and time to the police department. Even on his days off, he would call in to see if they needed help. Derek is a quiet, thoughtful, honorable, and selfless man. He has a big heart, and he always has put others before his own. The public will never know the loving and caring man he is, but his family does. Even though I have not spoken publicly, I have always supported him 100% and always will. Derek has played over and over in his head the events of that day. I've seen the toll it has taken on him. I believe.
Benet Sugar Boy, no, this isn't taken into consideration by the jury. The jury's role in this is over with. The jury determines if the person is guilty. Chauvin was found guilty on 3 out of 3 counts. He was found guilty on all counts, right? So Chauvin was already found guilty on all counts. That means that the jury's job is done. This is a sentencing hearing, so she's appealing to the judge who determines what kind of sentence or punishment is issued to the convicted. I'm not going to call him defendant anymore. He is the convicted now.
A lengthy sentence will not serve Derek well. When you sentence my son, you will also be sentencing me.
Oh my God, this bitch had the nerve to say that a lengthy sentence would not serve him well. Yeah, maybe then all the police departments shouldn't protest abolishing prisons, motherfuckers. If we abolished prisons like us anarchists wanted to, he wouldn't be facing this issue, would he? But here we are in the system that they protect and serve. So now he's getting put through said system. The fucking gall. How many people has he put in jail for his mother? I'm not going to start throwing out gendered slurs, but how many people has he put in jail for his mother to turn around and say that jail will not serve him well? He's a fucking cop.
I will not be able to see Derek, talk to him on the phone, or give him.
What the fuck? What the hell? Floyd's mother's son is gone. He's in the ground. You're complaining that you'll have to send him a letter and that you won't be able to see him face to face every day? Floyd's mother will never see his face again. What in the fucking hell? The gall to say that while his mother is sitting in that courtroom? Jesus fucking Christ. I'm sorry.
Our special hug. Plus the fact that when he is released, his father and I most likely will not be here.
Unfucking believable. She's sitting here crying because she may not live to see him be free again. George Floyd's mom outlived her son. That is a parent's worst nightmare. I am a parent. I understand this shit. And she's mad that he gets to live but not walk free? Jesus. And again, I can't stress this enough. Floyd's mother is in that courtroom. Holy hell.
Derek, my happiest moment is when I gave birth to you. And my second is when I was honored to pin your police badge on you. I remember you whispering to me, "Don't stick me with it." Derek, I want you to know
Seriously, how many other black mothers don't get to see their sons because of him? How many black mothers' sons have been put behind bars because of him? How many black mothers don't get to see their sons because they were fucking killed by the cops? Floyd's mother is one of them. And she wants to pull on our heartstrings with stories from his fucking childhood? Bitch, please. Jesus Christ.
I have always believed in your innocence, and I will never waver from that. I have read numerous letters from people around the world that also believe in your innocence. No matter where you go, where you are, I will always be there to visit you. I promise you I will stay strong, as we talked about, and I want you to do the same for me. I will do what you told me to do, take care of myself, so I will be here for you when you come home. Remember, there is no stronger bond or love than a mother's love. And one final thought I want you to remember. Remember, you are my favorite son. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Holy shit. What in the hell? Yeah, no, I had said earlier that I felt like the speech was coached. I wouldn't be surprised if the counsel coached her on her speech, but holy shit, that's not... I don't think a lawyer would be that fucking tone deaf. I know it sucks to have to be the lawyer to defend that piece of shit. Honestly, I feel bad for the lawyer. He probably got paid by the FOP, which is very common. But we've seen before that there are mothers who can recognize the evil that their sons have done. All right, the mom of Dylan Klebold spoke on his shootings. Oh, we're back.
Well, first of all, I wanted to thank everybody for being here and for providing the input you did. Not just the people who were in the courtroom here, but also those who provided written statements, both from the Floyd family and the defendant's family. I've read all the impact statements that were submitted earlier and listened carefully to all the input here today. And it is truly appreciated that you took the time to stay with this case, and to provide me with input. I have reviewed the pre-sentence investigation and carefully considered all the facts of the case and the law, but my comments are actually going to be very brief because most of it's going to be in writing. I have a 22-page memorandum that is going to be attached to the sentencing order. And why am I doing it in writing? To emphasize the fact that determining the appropriate sentence in any case, and in this case, is a legal analysis. It's applying the rule of law to the facts of an individual and specific case. And that is why, as opposed to trying to being profound here on the record, I prefer that you read the legal analysis that explains how I determined the sentence in this case. What the case is, or what the sentence is not based on, is emotion or sympathy. But at the same time, I want to acknowledge the deep.
Do you think he's stalling for
tremendous
riot
pain
cops to get into position outside the
that all the
courthouse?
families are feeling, especially the Floyd family? You have our sympathies. And I acknowledge and hear the pain that you are feeling. I acknowledge the pain not only of those in this courtroom,
Quit fucking stalling,
but the Floyd
punk.
family who are outside this courtroom and other members of the community. It has been painful throughout Hennepin County, throughout the state of Minnesota, and even the country. But most importantly, we need to
I'm too
recognize
sober
the
for
pain of the
this.
Floyd family. I'm not going to attempt to be profound or clever because it's not the appropriate time. I'm not basing my sentence also on public opinion. I'm not basing it on any attempt to send any messages. A trial court judge, the job of a trial court judge is to apply the law to specific facts and to deal with individual cases. And so, Mr. Chauvin, as to count one, based on the verdict of the jury finding you guilty of unintentional second-degree murder while committing a felony under Minnesota Statute 609.19 subdivision 2.
Oh, he's fucking sweating.
It is the judgment of the court that you now stand convicted of that offense. Pursuant to Minnesota Statute Section 609.04, counts 2 and 3 will remain unadjudicated as they are lesser offenses of count 1. As sentence for count 1, the court commits you to the custody of the Commissioner of Corrections for a period of 270 months. That's 270. That is a 10-year addition to the presumptive sentence of 150 months. This is based on your abuse of a position of trust and authority, and also the particular cruelty shown to George Floyd. You are granted credit for 199 days already served. Pay the mandatory surcharge of $78 to be paid from prison wages. You're prohibited from possessing firearms, ammunition, or explosives for the remainder of your life. Provide a DNA sample as required by law. Register as a predatory offender as required by law. And then you will receive a copy of the order and also the attached memorandum explaining the court's analysis. Anything further from the state?
If this needs to be said, we just ask that it be executed forthwith.
Defendant is remanded to the custody of the sheriff to be transported back to the DOC or whichever custody is currently holding him. Anything from the defense?
If I did my math, it's
Thank you.
20, 21, 22 years. So he gets to live to see the light of day again, basically. Hope they take his fucking pension. Looks like they've cut the courtroom feed. Let's see if
So I would imagine for a lot of people there is still some satisfaction that there was actually accountability, because at the end of the day, that is what you hear so often from people, that rarely is there accountability. And there certainly was in this case. It certainly wasn't a slap on the wrist, as I would imagine many people, will definitely attest to. Wasn't the maximum, but he certainly got a very hefty sentence for what we all witnessed, this traumatic killing of a man. And maybe for some people, it restores some.
Many years to come as to how he made
this decision. Again, he said that he has a 22-page written statement that he's going to add to what happened today with the sentencing. So we will see in detail. That was a little bit of a surprise too, Major, that he didn't come out. Many legal experts had thought that he would give very detailed and specific reasons as to why he came to that 22.5-year sentence. Again, that's about 10 years longer than the Minnesota State guidelines would have given Derek Chauvin, based on the fact that he had no prior criminal record. His attorney, Eric Nelson, the defense attorney, had stated that he is concerned about Derek Chauvin's safety. That was a reason that the defense had asked for probation in this case with time served. Now, Derek Chauvin will get credit for about 199 days. That's how long he's been in prison. We know he's in solitary confinement at this point. And again, as the sentence was being read, it was interesting to note that
I really don't give a shit what these talking heads have to say. I'm mainly watching because I want to see the reactions outside.
CBS News legal contributor and civil rights attorney Alexis Hogue joins us. Alexis, the prosecution asked for 30 years. The judge handed down 22.5 years. He said that sentence was not based on emotion, sympathy, public opinion, or messaging. Your reaction?
Yeah, good afternoon, Major. I can't say that I'm surprised by this sentence. I think back to former police officer in Minnesota, Mohammed Noor, who was actually convicted of a lesser account, so third-degree murder, and received a 12.5-year sentence. And so I knew going into today, because Chauvin
come together, because you have to remember this case, despite the sentencing today, has already changed America in many, many ways. People of all backgrounds have come together for a common cause, and we've seen that 22.5 years. This is what a lot of people have been asking for, just this recognition that police officers do.
No, that's not what we've been asking for. We have been asking for them to defund and abolish the fucking police. We've been asking for them to take away the ability of the police to fucking kill people. That's what we've been asking. We've been talking about wanting fucking accountability for my entire goddamn lifetime and my parents' entire lifetime. And they're in their 70s.
still exist, which is that Black people, brown people, people of color experience greater degrees of violence when they have contact with the criminal legal system, with police officers. And so these are unaddressed
Can we shut her up so I can hear what this dude on the street is saying?
Amount of sentence wouldn't address.
Jesus.
And so I think it's so important to focus on moving forward for Mr. Floyd's family. I'm hopeful that this sentence gives them some amount of relief, but
why are you going to cut to an activist on the street and then talk over it the whole goddamn time?
That are as concerned and as committed to really overhauling the way that police officers interact with the public.
Thank you very much. I want to bring in now CBS News legal analyst Ricky Kleeman. Ricky, it's an oversimplified question to say what's your reaction, but I'm going to do it anyway. What's your reaction?
My reaction is that I am not surprised by the sentence. I think many of us who have taken our lives and dealt with the criminal justice system as both prosecutors and defenders, as I have, would have expected a sentence between 20 and 30 years. So he was well within that range. There was not really a path to give Derek Chauvin the presumptive sentence in light of the aggravators that were put forth by the prosecution and explained by the prosecutor today, particularly the act act of cruelty of Derek Chauvin, as well as looking at his abuse of authority. I thought the prosecutor's argument was highly persuasive in court about the fact that when you have someone in custody, he is in your care, and that Derek Chauvin did not show care to George Floyd. I think that there will be people who are disappointed that he did not get this quote.
Thank you for the subs, folks. Septagon, Clark the Sith, Alias, OnlyFacts. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to try and find some alternative news sources other than these fucking corporate ones to see if somebody's actually on the street covering this shit. Let's see here. I wonder if Vice is there or something. I mean, it's a known fact that they protect cops in jail who actually get sentenced. So I don't expect anything to happen to him there in jail. Trying to find maybe some independent sources that are covering this live. Hey, thank you for the follows, folks. Appreciate you. DSUS666, Refit Man. Thank you for all the subs, folks. It's kind of a somber occasion, so sorry if I don't have as much out-and-out energy. But, hey, OnlyFacts TV, good to see you. Sorry I don't have as much energy. But, you know, it's Libby shit. There are people here doing a victory lap. There are people doing a victory lap over this, but the fact of the matter is that he's going to live to see the light of day, most likely. He'll be a senior citizen. He may have some trouble readjusting to the world, but he's been at least given the time to reflect on his life and the decisions he's made. That was not a luxury extended to his victim. I am a prison abolitionist still, so people know that about me. But at the same time, we're still stuck in a system of police and prisons, and we don't have a lot of power. We don't have a lot of power to fight that system, but that system is still being unfairly applied to marginalized people, as opposed to people in the ruling class and those in the police state that protect the ruling class. So, I'm going to just change this headline here. Yeah, so it's hardly systemic change. I don't like how many of these news anchors are fucking taking a victory lap. Sparrowhawk, the sentencing's done. He's gotten 22.5 years in prison. Sparrowhawk, he got 22 and a half years. I'm trying to find somebody who's on the ground covering the streets live outside of the courthouse. but I'm having a little trouble finding any.
The country is awakened to this issue in a new way. George Floyd likely, let's hope, did not die in vain.
Terry, thank you. And we're seeing more people there in Minneapolis showing up at that.
There's, I believe, in the state of Minnesota, he does have the ability to appeal and try to get out on good behavior. It's a possibility. I don't know the nature of the sentencing in Minnesota. I'm not all that good at it. But what I can tell you is the judge did not denote that he would be sentenced without parole or that he was forced to serve the full sentence. So it's very possible that he could appeal his sentence at some point. And I assure you, if he's able to, then he most certainly will. Yeah, I know. I agree with that, Sparrowhawk, because prison doesn't help anyone. And yet here's a guy, his mother had the gall to say that it wouldn't be good to him, despite the fact that her son probably put a lot of people in prison. I caught the stream a little bit late. George Floyd's daughter did make a statement earlier at the sentence. Victims impact statement. I'm probably not going to watch that. I'm not a big fan of putting children up there on the screen, and it's probably kind of triggering, honestly, and very sad, but you can find that online if you wanted to investigate that yourself. Let's see what Washington Post is covering. Looks like Washington Post is out on the ground.
Did not say more than he did. Matter of fact, I was surprised that he said anything at all, because not only does he face the federal charge, but I am sure he and his attorney is going to appeal this case up to the state Court of Appellate. So I was not surprised at all that he did not say more than what he did.
Let's talk more about that, Keith, and just the decision of Chauvin to at least say a little bit. You know, he did give sort of a strange comment right at the end there as he spoke. He said there is going to be some other information in the future that would be of interest, and I hope things will give you some peace of mind. That's a message that he gave directly to the Floyd family. We don't really know what he was talking about, but what we do know is that these federal charges are looming and very much in his mind.
Well, here's the thing. If what he is alluding to, a very cryptic statement, if it was so illuminating, why wasn't it used during this trial before, when it really should have counted? And so I don't know if that was theatrics. I don't know if they discovered something that they did not discover before trial. I don't know, but it was a very ominous statement that seemed more dramatic than anything else. I will say, again, as you said, I cover these cases all the time. And what really struck me and really jumped out at me was the fact that Chauvin looked at each and every person who spoke. He turned his head, turned his whole body, and looked at the Floyd family. And that's unusual. Oftentimes, when you see individuals who are convicted of murder, oftentimes that person will look directly at the judge.
So that's something I didn't even think about. You know, I said that Floyd's mother was there in the courtroom. Floyd's daughter, his 9-year-old daughter, was there in the courtroom as well for this sentencing. Yeah, it would be nice, Sparrowhawk, if this came at the tail end of some comprehensive law enforcement reform even, and I'm not a reformist, but holy shit, it hasn't. So, and this is minutia. So this isn't really systemic change. There's literally what I said when this whole thing happened and he was convicted. I said, okay, we got 609,000 to go, because that's how many cops remain on the streets. And so we can't count on a system to arrest and convict all of them in court. We need to do something different.
Attached to it is a history of people being sentenced for second-degree murder over the past 10 years. This is and what they've gotten, how long of a sentence they've gotten, and that is what he was referring to in his decision. 6% of people. That's what. So he has put together. What he's attempting to do is put together an ironclad piece of legal reasoning that on appeal cannot be turned down. And so the fact that he wrote this 22-page the legal reasoning is just, it's interesting. And I think it speaks to the fact that this case is going to be appealed. There's no question. I see that we're going to a press conference here.
Yeah, let's hear from the Attorney General of Minnesota, Keith Ellison.
It's not justice, but it is another moment of real accountability on the road to justice. It's difficult to see.
I think we just lost the feed there. But
did they really just cut the fucking AG?
Keith Ellison,
Jesus
was in the
Christ!
Courtroom today, and it was his team that prosecuted Derek Chauvin. You could see.
There's tons of great food all over Ohio.
That have slammed into these areas, making it particularly tough for these rescue crews.
What in the
families,
fuck is happening?
Allison,
Did they all just cut away from the AG?
In the process of being moved here from this reunification here to a hotel just a couple of blocks down the road here as they prepare for a sustained longer-term outlook here, Allison.
Oh, okay. So it's their title says they're going over the sentencing in a special report, but they cut to a guy in Miami for the condo collapse. I don't understand this. Oh, here we go. Here we go.
In the wake of George Floyd's torture and death, today is also an important moment for our country. The outcome of this case is critically important, but by itself, it's not enough. My hope for our country is that this moment gives us pause and allows us to rededicate ourselves to the real societal change that will move us much further along the road to justice. I'm not talking about the kind of change that takes decades. I'm talking about real change, concrete change that real people can do now. I'm talking to lawmakers. At this historic moment, there is so much legislation around the country. In city councils, county boards, state legislatures, and Congress that is still waiting to be passed. If these bills were passed, they would make the deaths at the hands of law enforcement officers less likely, would improve police-community relations, would restore trust and therefore cooperation, improve the lives of officers who want to protect and serve, and make everyone safer. Every one of these bills at every level of government is critical for helping our families, our law enforcement officers, communities, and the country heal. Above all, Congress has still not passed the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. I call on leaders and members of Congress to pass the best and strongest version of this bill that can be passed, and to pass it now. President Biden called on the Congress to pass this bill. It must be passed. Lives are depending upon it. It's just that simple. I'm speaking now to law enforcement leaders. At this historic moment, law enforcement leaders are in a position to finally put in place policy, training, mechanisms, and accountability that can build a police department that people can really trust and rely on. And the elected leaders that they answer to must support and empower these law enforcement leaders to do it. Where there is distrust between community and police, there is less cooperation between community and police. And at a moment where violent crime is spiking across the nation in major cities, we simply cannot afford the distrust. The schism leaves us all a little less safe. But trust and cooperation must be earned. You cannot clean a dirty wound. By bringing accountability in law enforcement, you actually promote public safety. I say to those law enforcement leaders, make no mistake, this is something your officers are asking for. In the aftermath of George Floyd's death, 14 Minneapolis Police Department officers signed an open letter condemning Derek Chauvin's actions and embracing the call for reform and change. These 14 officers don't only speak for themselves, they speak for hundreds across the country. These officers and ones like them want you to support officers who treat everyone with dignity and respect. They want you to support officers who are taking risks to speak up and demand that we do better. They want you to hold their colleagues accountable who refuse to serve
there are
communities
hundreds of police
with dignity and
officers
respect.
working in Minneapolis.
Why do officers want accountability? Well, think of the 9-year-old girl wearing a t-shirt that said love across the front, who witnessed George Floyd's murder, and how she will feel 20 years from now as she may be speaking to her own children about whether to trust law enforcement. The damage that Derek Floyd's crime inflicted upon the reputation of officers is undermining the ability for people to trust, and that is very tragic. It's not fair to judge all police officers by Derek Chauvin's actions, but some people inevitably will generalize unless there is true accountability. You just can't heal a dirty wound, and when there's little trust, sadly, there's little safety. When law enforcement leaders take clear steps to build in accountability and prioritize wellness for their officers, they will have the officers' respect, trust between officers and the people they are dedicated to protecting and serving. Let me speak to prosecutors. We believe, and we state and declare, that no one is above the law and no one is beneath it. A police officer is not above the law, and George Floyd certainly is not beneath the law. When, after a thorough review, prosecutors believe that they have probable cause that anyone, including someone operating with the authority of law and law enforcement, has violated the law, our prosecutors must be vigorous, visible, and swift. I'm speaking to community now. We need every community member to continue the call for real reform and meaningful change. Peacefully, constructively, but clearly. This is a moment for change, and your call for it is making it happen. This means everyone who wants to live in a society with dignity and respect as core values, everyone who wants to be safe in their homes and on the street, everyone who wants to get the help that they need, everyone who wants their loved ones to get home safely. This is what we need to do. What will happen if we don't do it? We will slip deeper into a century-long cycle of inaction. We can and we must make another choice. The choice to break the old paradigm and end the cycle of inaction. The choice to act for accountability and justice. The choice to transform ourselves and our country. For the sake of all the lives that have been lost, for the sake of the terrible sacrifices that too many families like the Floyds have had to make, and for the sake of the many officers who strive to serve and protect with dignity and honor and high standards, and for the sake of the community. Time is up. It's time to act. We're counting on you. We're counting on each other. Finally, I want to thank this extraordinary team of prosecutors It has been my deepest honor.
I mean, we're not
going to
expect anything more than reformism from this motherfucker. He's an attorney's general. He's an attorney general, so he still depends on the cops to exist to do his job.
Signal of love and friendship to the Floyd family, who have done so much to uphold the dignity of our community. I want to thank the Hennepin County Attorney's Office and Mike Freeman, who have been side by side with us and have done such a good job, and we appreciate their work. And I want to thank the witnesses who courageously stepped forward for George Floyd on May 25th at risk to themselves and came back a year later to testify about what they saw.
Oh, I know this us. I'm pissed
I want to thank
too.
the community
Trust me.
For making the call for justice.
Yeah, we need to quit talking about how this guy made a sacrifice. Sacrifices are voluntary. Sacrifices are something that people willingly give for the greater good when they give of themselves. Why are we calling George Floyd's murder a sacrifice? That's fucking gross. That's terrible. And now, like I said, I came to the stream late. Apparently, all of Floyd's some of Floyd's family members also spoke at the sentencing hearing. I came to the stream late, so I missed some of those. I came in just as Chauvin started his his statements. I already played the mothers. It doesn't look, whenever the news has a great opportunity to actually go to the ground and talk to some of the activists on the ground and get their perspective, but instead they're going to sit here and give the microphone to news anchors and fucking attorney generals. Like, who cares? Who gives a shit? Like, why don't they actually talk to people, who are living this, who are there on the streets? I found a recording of Floyd's brother delivering his victim impact statement at the hearing. We didn't show this earlier, but I found it clipped, so we'll go ahead and show that. I'm not going to show his kid's impact statement because, again, I don't believe in plastering children's suffering all over the internet like that, so I'm not going to do that at all. So I will, but I will play his brother's statement.
1 year ago, May 25th, my brother George was murdered by Derek Chauvin and his co-defendants in broad daylight with a knee to his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. I was a trucker, and immediately my life changed forever. I began to speak to the world for George from the United Nations, Africa, Canada, Japan, and so many other countries. Every day, I have begged for justice to be served, reliving the execution of George, while others begged and pleaded for Officer Chauvin to simply just allow George to take a breath. I haven't had a real night's sleep because of the nightmares I constantly have hearing my brother beg and plead for his life over and over again. Even saying, "They're going to kill me. Please, officer." Screaming for our mom. I have had to sit through each day of Officer Derek Chauvin's trial and watch the video of George dying for hours over and over again. For an entire year, I had to relive George being tortured to death every hour of the day, only taking naps and not knowing what a good night's sleep is anymore. I've been lifting my voice tirelessly every day so that George's death will not be in vain. Honorable Judge Peter Cahill, I thank you for allowing me to share this today. George's life mattered. So my family and I, most of all, my niece, Gianna, she needs closure. I'm asking that you please find it suitable to give Officer Chauvin the maximum sentence possible, charge that he has been found guilty for.
Gianna is Floyd's daughter,
My family
who
and I
made a
have been
statement
given
before
a life
this.
sentence. We would never be able to get George back. Daddy's our daughter's first love. He would never be able to walk Gianna down the aisle in her.
The max is 30, Sparrowhawk. The maximum would have been 30 years.
Attend those magical moments of her life like a daddy-daughter dance, sweet 16 party, seeing her out for prom graduations, and she would never be able to have any personal memories with her father. With a smirk on his face and children present, Officer Chauvin used excessive force and acted against his training. Chauvin had no regards for human life, George's life. I stand before you today asking you to please help us find closure by giving Chauvin the maximum sentence possible, making sure he does his time consecutively without the possibilities of parole, probation, or getting out early for good behavior. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, NBC.
So, yeah, that was the victim impact statement from his brother Philanese Floyd, who's become an activist in his own right after the events that took place last year. And George Floyd had multiple brothers, so he also had an impact statement delivered by Terrence Floyd, his other brother, in the sentencing hearing, and we can watch that as well, because I do think it's important to see the trauma that the family, even if we don't put the kids' testimony up there, I think it is important though to see the trauma that the family's going through. This doesn't go away for them. This trauma doesn't go away. I guess I should trigger warning this, like this is people reliving trauma of a murder. It does not appear to be discussing any graphic details, but I understand if you want to tune out, but I think it's important to hear. His nephew did also give a statement. Let's see. I might do one more. But this was an impromptu stream, so I have some other things I got to get to, but there was one thing that I did want to show you. You could maybe say that it's a palate cleanse. About a year ago, in New Zealand, actually, because the protests erupted around the world. The world over, minorities and marginalized people are experiencing brutality at the hands of police. The sentiments of the protests here in the United States was felt in Ghana, it was felt in Nigeria, it was felt in New Zealand, it was felt on the streets of London, on the streets of Paris, in Toronto, Canada, in Hong Kong. Remember, this was going on at the same time that Hong Kong police were enacting their own brutality against demonstrators. It was felt in Australia, in India. Wherever you go, marginalized people are having to feel the boots of cops pushing their face down into the ground. And we're constantly having to fight and claw that uphill battle. I meant to talk about this in a video some time ago, but we'll do this as a palate cleanse, sort of. In last year in New Zealand, some locals actually performed a haka at a Black Lives Matter protest, a Mari ceremony in solidarity with protesters in the United States and justice for George Floyd. So that moved me to tears when I saw it the first time. So I'm going to show it here. After the ad. Hey, Mint Nerd. Yeah, it was 22 and a half years. I am not Maori. Arvinus. And technically, the most basic explanation is it's a war dance and ceremony. It's kind of like a psych up for warriors, dating back thousands of years for the indigenous Maori people in Australia and New Zealand. But it's a lot more than that. Oftentimes, in times of great strife or pain or suffering, it's a form of solidarity. These youth are performing this in solidarity to Black Lives Matter. They did this in June of 2020 in solidarity with Black Lives Matter and the fight for justice for George Floyd. It seems very cathartic, Sparrowhawk. So the reason I showed this, mainly the haka, but in general the whole video clip, is that, you know, this one sentencing is not victory and it's not systemic change. But when we see how the pain and suffering brought about by violence from the state echoes around the world, the Maori people of New Zealand are no strangers to police brutality. They experience a lot of the same oppression and white supremacy that are felt by people of the Black diaspora here in the United States, or for that matter, Native Americans and indigenous people here in the Americas. And so just know this is something to take with you when you're trying to recruit people to your movement, when you're trying to organize and collectivize. There's a common thread that we can reach out to all people, because many people can understand that the shit we go through with cops is too much, and that we need something different. We need to destroy that system and replace it with something else. listen, thanks for hanging with me, folks. It's been about an hour and 15 minutes. This was a very impromptu stream. I am going to duck out. Thank you for watching. Please try to do something positive today. Take care of yourself. I normally don't do this much negative stuff on my streams, but a whole bunch more people than I expected came in to watch, so I really do appreciate that. Just keep your families close, protect your communities, look out for each other, and have a great rest of your day, okay?